This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City look to get back in the win column as they host Orlando City. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
With Matty, what's happening? Matty Lawrence right there. I'm Glenn Crooks, and here we are for we're back home, back at Yankee Stadium. We had what was a substantial road trip, no question about it. Not a successful one for the club in LA against the Galaxy and in Nashville. So, Matty, just at the top here, and again, we are preparing for our live commentary, which begins at 7:15 p.m. with a pregame show with Nick Cushing, presented by Ford. And we're on everywhere tonight. So, as I will always say, no excuse not to give us a listen, at least for a few minutes anyway. So, New York City, they only gained one victory in their opening 7 matches. Then win 8 of their next 9. And in that whole little stretch there, just one loss in 11 games because there were a couple of draws in that, only one win out of 7 to start the season. But now it's 3 consecutive losses. It started with Columbus, the 3-2 home loss, and there was a red card in that match, which certainly changed the course of the game. And then these 2 most recent losses on the road. And I guess the part there that is at least somewhat disturbing is that it appeared New York City had solved the road woes. Yes. But, again, we had a couple of games where not many chances on goal, and the goals conceded, all 3 of them, were pretty poor.
Yeah, look, if you looked up inconsistent, or I'll take it one further, wildly inconsistent in either a Webster's or an Oxford English Dictionary, you'd find a picture of the NYCFC squad. That's the problem, isn't it? Any good team learns how to grind out draws when you're playing badly, sometimes even grind out 1-0 wins when you're playing badly. NYCFC haven't managed to figure that out. The roller coaster, the up and down, the peaks and the troughs, however we want to lay it out, Glenn, that becomes a worry because, as you say, the 8 wins in 9 that's magnificent in any sport, in any field, male, female, anywhere across the world, any league across the world. It shows you've got it together. It shows that you understand how to win games of football or whatever sport. So to suddenly then lose 3 on the bounce, granted against a good Columbus team, a relatively good LA team, a reasonable national team, but let's be honest, it was not only the losses, it was the manner of the losses, and as you said as well, the inability to create.
I want to make sure I don't want to make sure I don't want to unplug the broadcast down here. I was kicking some wires.
Well, Nick Cushing was trying to unplug me as I was talking my way through this, and I do joke about that. I think Nick would be the first to admit that those inconsistencies are not what you want as a player or as a coach.
Well, look at this goal against Nashville, and I'm going to play our commentary.
Do I have to watch again?
No, yeah, but I addressed this with Nick, and he was very much in agreement that I really count 5. Let's listen to your, how we both describe this, and then this is the goal against Nashville. Tyler Boyd scored it, and it was just a lot of things happened. All right, Surge back at the other end on the dribble against Ilinic, and Ilinic does well to use his body, and I thought he was going to shepherd it out. Instead, he pushed it towards the corner, and now Surge has it back. Curling ball in, and it's a goal for Nashville SC. And Tyler Boyd doesn't miss this time. Boyd dribble freeze earlier in the game in the opening moments and missed an empty netter. Mitja Ilinic had a chance for a New York City goal kick. He had used his body to get between Surge and the ball. The ball was rolling pretty rapidly. Could have just shepherded it out. Instead, he played it out wide, not out of play. It kept the game going for Nashville.
Well, it's a couple of times. It's 2 really weak tackles. One from Parks, one from Ilinic. Surridge, all he does is just loft the ball to the back post, and Tyler Boyd wants it more. He wants it. It's all about hunger and heart and desire, and he gets in front of O'Toole and he heads it through Matt Freese as well. Freese should save it. O'Toole should get to it. Two 50-50 challenges should have been won. That is a multitude of errors wrapped up in one goal gifted to Nashville SC, Glenn.
Yeah, so you pointed to 4. I know
you went the one before.
I belabored the Ilinic point, but I asked Nick that directly, and he certainly agreed that you would normally see the ball out there.
Yeah.
And so
all I can think is that he thought it was going out for a corner kick, so he tried to play it out for a throw-in. Otherwise, why would you play it? That's all I can think.
I'm going to ask him.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, but it looked pretty clear that it was going out for a goal kick, and he was in a good position just to manoeuvre his body in between the ball and Surridge, and Surridge would then have to foul him to get to the ball. So, but yeah, look, the multitude of errors, whether it's 4 or 5, it remains the same, that it was just a dreadfully weak goal to give up. And I use the word weak. There was 3 challenges, the 2 50-50s and then the headed challenge at the back post. That's weak. It's just weak mentally and physically.
And that becomes their 8th loss to go along with 9 wins and a couple of draws. So on 29 points coming into this weekend, this is Friday Night Football. It's the lone entry in MLS tonight. But New York City, a single point behind 5th place Columbus, 3 points behind 4th place Charlotte and Dean Smith. The New York Red Bulls are in 3rd, Cincinnati 2nd, and Miami still top of the table in the Eastern Conference. Orlando, they are just barely below the playoff line. They're in 10th. They're tied on points with Atlanta, but they're tied in victories with 5, but Atlanta has the better goal differential. In fact, Orlando City, -8.
Yes.
The goal differential. You're never quite sure what you're going to get at the back, and they've got some very good attacking players. So, that's their combination.
Look, and I think with Janssen and Schlegel, I think they've got 2 experienced good centre halves. I don't want to say it's the best centre half pairing in the Eastern Conference. It's not, but it's one of the most experienced, and it is a good centre half pairing. For me, the both of them like defending, or that was my assumption. They like to defend. No grey areas. They'll clear long. They'll clear out rather than try and play out the back at times. With Gillespie in behind, but I know he's not playing today. That's a pretty strong triumvirate there. But you're right. 31 goals conceded is not good enough. They've scored 3 fewer than NYCFC as well. So it's an 11-goal swing in terms of obviously their goal difference, which is massive. And I think that points towards why they've only won 5 games and why they've lost 8.
Yeah, Gillespie, one of several Orlando City players away. Gillespie with Peru. And let's get back to, as far as goal scoring, New York City FC. So the other thing that the goals conceded, all 3 of them were difficult to watch. 2 against the Galaxy, 1 Nashville. But Monsef Bakrar started at striker in both those road matches, and you got the feeling that this was maybe the final chance for that doesn't mean he'll never play the rest of the season, but maybe as a starter in these next few games. I don't think we're going to see Bakrar, and we know that Alonso Martinez is going to start this match. I talked to Nick about this before the announcement here, and he says something in here which gives you the idea that Martinez will start today and also next Wednesday against Montreal.
I think naturally that's what's happened, right? We've rotated in the moments where maybe an injuries came or suspensions came, or maybe we felt like form needs to be, maybe players need to be taken out or put in. And I think those guys are fighting hard. And, as a support staff with myself as the decision maker, we'll come to a decision of, with these next 2 games, we're going to go run with somebody that we feel can, really put up some numbers and really give the team the best chance of scoring goals.
They chose Martinez because he's put up some numbers. He's got 6 goals. That's second on the team to Santi Rodriguez. 3 of them came in a reserve role in that hat-trick performance against the San Jose Earthquakes, the 5-1 win. But I suppose he's the natural choice, even though he's not maybe a natural 9.
I think that's the right thing. It's in inverted commas, isn't it? He's the natural number 9. The fact of the matter is, pretty much for me, the only person you can put there right now. It feels for me, when Bakrar's in front of goal, as though someone somewhere around the world, putting pins in that voodoo doll, almost on his left foot and his right foot. I say that a little bit flippantly, but I genuinely feel sorry for him. He genuinely works very hard, but in the last few games, he's been hiding. And that is the worst thing you can say about an athlete of any ilk. He goes hiding. He tries to stay away from the ball. He doesn't make himself accessible. He's not creating angles. And then when he gets in front of goal, we've seen him miss the ball on more than one occasion. you don't like seeing a player of the age of 10 miss a ball. Go to try and kick the ball and miss it, and it hits your standing foot, or you hit it against your standing foot. And that's not saying he's a bad player, because he obviously isn't. He's been scouted a multitude of times, but right now he looks like a bad player. That's just factual. He's playing as a centre forward. He doesn't want the ball, and he doesn't take chances in front of goal. That is the absolute, description of a bad player, and I feel sorry for him. I'm surprised even that he's on the bench. I really am. I understand that maybe you bring him on for the last 10 minutes and hope that the goalkeeper smashes it against his backside or something that goes into the back of the net. He needs a bit of luck, but also he needs confidence. And what would happen with strikers that I've ever played, and they would be sent down to the reserves. They would go and play in the reserves to regain their confidence, because it's going to be very hard for him to regain his confidence here. I use that phrase, his confidence is lower than a snake's belly. It really is right now. It's been hard for him, and it's getting to him as a human being. Forget getting to him as a footballer. You see how this is really hurting him mentally. You can see there's nothing wrong with saying that. We know that everything in life is a mental battle, whether it's health, whether it's getting to work, whatever it is. Sometimes when you're down, you have to battle it mentally, and he isn't equipped to do it right now. The proof is out there every time you watch him play at the moment.
Well, we're looking at the starting 11. If you are watching this, the lower third, you could see it scrolling, and it's going to be Malachi Jones in the starting 11. He'll play on the left side. Tavon Gray back in for Micha Ilinic, who had a difficult contest in Nashville. And as we look at the bench, once again, we see no Tyler Magno. So Tyler Magno went on this trip to L.A. and Nashville. Actually, everybody on the roster was on the trip, but he didn't make the bench either trip. This will be the third straight game he's not on the bench. He played 6 minutes in the opener against Charlotte. We know he's had some injury problems, but whenever he's been available, he's been in the squad, with the exception of the last 3 matches. So naturally, I'd be remiss not to ask Nick Cushing this week at his pregame presser, or just before my one-on-one with him, that part of our pregame show coming up at 7:15, about Magno, because it would certainly appear, and this is exactly what I said to Nick, that the writing is on the wall.
But right, ultimately, really simple, that we have a really competitive roster here, and you can see across our front line that with Agu and Malachi and Hanez and Julian, that it's really competitive, and there's a lot of competition getting into the team. Andres Jason wasn't getting into the team and isn't here because he found an opportunity. Tales, there is no secret, he just hasn't played any football this year. He got the injury, which was unfortunate at the start of the year, and there's a lot of competition. And if you look across, I lost Kevin O'Toole, so Christy McFarlane has to go on the bench because Kevin O'Toole comes back and is off the back of a hamstring. Tane has to be on the bench because Thiago Martins is injured, and then Keaton Parks is on 4 yellow cards, Andres Pereira is on 4 yellow cards, so Justin Hack has to be ready to go in, because this is all part of having a competitive roster. And ultimately you can only name 9 subs, and when you haven't played any football and you are working back to getting rhythm and getting your real feel and getting momentum in the team, is a natural decision to put those guys that are more ready in.
Can he compete his way to more time still? Does he have that opportunity?
This is what he's doing every day. He's training incredibly well. He's incredibly motivated. He is, of course, disappointed. But every day in training, everybody is competing with everybody to be in the team. And the game changes fast, right? A suspension. Like I say, Keaton and Andres Pereira still on 4 yellow cards. None of our number 9s are really putting up numbers yet. There is a lot of ups and a lot of downs in a football season, and everybody is involved within that.
All right, so that was midweek, and with Magno again not on the bench. And, when that happens, there's usually something more to it, although Nick did explain some of the situations, and he does have 2 wingers on the right and 2 wingers on the left, who are both right now ahead of Magno in the coach's mind, so therefore he's not making the bench. But we've also seen this. No confirmation on this, but this is a tweet that went out, and in essence, it says that Tyler Magno, with negotiations between New York City FC and Atletico Mineiro, that maybe this is a club that he'll end up with back in Brazil. Maybe he'll be more comfortable back home. Again, no confirmation on this. It's just something we saw. It was shared with us as if it were a reliable source. So we'll take it for what it's worth, and it wouldn't be a shock that New York City would have an interest in moving Magno. A big part of the problem is the budgetary aspect of that, right?
Absolutely. And look, while everything Nick said was believable, I don't believe it. I don't believe that that Tylus Magno is competing to the best of his ability in training, because otherwise he'd be in the squad. You don't pay, if you're a football club or a business, as CFG is, the amount of money they paid as a transfer fee and then him in wages for him to play really well in training all the time and him not be in the squad. I don't believe that. I think the fact of the matter is they're trying to get him out, and that's fine. That is their want. Managers have different opinions and GMs have different opinions and things like that. Tylus Magno, you said it, will he be more comfortable back in Brazil? He couldn't be any less comfortable back in Brazil, because it's looked really uncomfortable for him in the last 12 to 18 months.
For sure.
He hasn't shown us how good he really is, and that then becomes a problem within football. Within the game, you get forgotten in 3 to 6 months, and I mean forgotten. Nobody realizes how good you were 12 months ago, 18 months ago. You need to prove it. Are Atletico Mineiro going to pay $1.2 million in wages for Tylus Magno to take him on loan? Absolutely not, Glenn. They may pay 50% of his wages. They may not. They may only pay 33%.
Well, the option also is a loan. Which
no, that's what I'm saying, loan. That's what I'm saying,
you're
a
saying
loan.
on a loan,
And nobody's going to pay his full wages.
Right.
NYCFC are going to have to pay some of his wages to get him out. That, I would imagine that is just a matter of fact. Also, Atletico Mineiro are a very big team. In Brazil, they are very good. They're not having the greatest of seasons. They've only lost 2 games, though. They're in the last 16 of the CONMEBOL Libertadores, which is the UEFA equivalent of the Champions League. They're only playing against San Lorenzo, an Argentine side who aren't very good. So they're going to be in the quarterfinals of the equivalent of the Champions League in South America. There's no way in the world Tylus Magno is falling out of the reserves of NYCFC to be in the starting lineup of a side in the Libertadores quarterfinals. This is only my opinion. I may be wrong. But if you look down at the side that Mineiro have, Atletico Mineiro, not American Mineiro, they're really, really good, Glenn. And, you know, they're a better team than NYCFC. That's factual. If you can't get in here, it's going to be a real struggle back in Brazil at a big club, in my opinion. Maybe he'll just make the transition so smoothly. I hope he does, because the kid's obviously got talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here for that big amount of money anyway. He just hasn't shown us it. It just hasn't fitted into place.
And the irony of this being Orlando City, the opponent, New York City, won their home match with Orlando last year, 2-0. The goal scorers, Tylus Magno and Monsef Bakrar. Magno, we figure, is on his way out, and Bakrar is out of the 11, and you just wonder, and you would suspect that he'll either get the opportunity today off the bench if Martinez cannot play 90, or is it Jovan Mijatovic that gets that look? But we assume, based on Nick's comments, that Martinez will get today. And no matter how it goes, he'll also get Wednesday against CF Montreal. That game will be at Citi Field before New York City heads to Austin. But this Orlando City series, so these are expansion mates. They both joined the league in 2015. New York City has 8 wins. Orlando has 7. There's been 8 draws. That's in a regular season. They've only played twice in the postseason, Matty, and both of those were draws. Both went to penalties, and both were won by Orlando City. Of course, the one we remembered, earlier you were talking about Rodrigo Schlegel, a center back that you like, who's like a traditional center back who likes to defend. We also found out he likes to play goal, and that was the 2020 playoffs when Pedro Gallese got his second yellow because he left the line early. And there was a lot of confusion. That was one where we were still doing games from home off the monitor because per COVID, we were not allowed in the stadium. And it was very, very difficult for us to decipher what was going on, not being at the game. Alan Chapman was the referee. He got a little bit more than
I was going to say, he was finding it difficult as well.
Yeah, he had lost track of a few things, and recognizing that Schlegel had to get in goal because you couldn't replace the goalkeeper. And so he went in and he saves the penalty that wins the game for Orlando City. Gudmundur Tóra, we would both agree, one of the poorer PKs that we've seen taken in modern day football. But Schlegel still had to save it. I mean, it was at his hands and all that. But Goody came back and did some other good things later in 21, which helped New York City win MLS Cup. So And then the other was a U.S. Open Cup. I remember that one too. And very few people down in Orlando, and all the Orlando supporters were at one end, and they decided to take the penalties at the other. And security was all lined up to not let them come down into that area right behind the goal. But they burst through security, and they just got down there anyway and caused a ruckus. And, that's always a little more challenging.
Yes,
but, that's what goalkeepers are supposed to be able to handle, right?
But look, what we're saying is that this has been a close matchup. Throughout, whether it's MLS, whether it's postseason, this has been close. And to be honest, I think it'll be close again. I know that NYCFC, looking at the record this season, are the better team. That's factual. They've got more points. What is it? 7 more points, 8 more points actually. They've scored more goals, conceded a lot fewer. But I think Orlando City will make this hard. Look, they haven't won many games, Orlando, but they won 4-2 in their last game. They've scored a lot of goals. They've scored 6 in their last 2. Winning against Chicago.
Torres,
Duncan
McGuire.
Great players. Yeah, they've got some good players.
Ivan Angulo, Lodero to set them all up. He's got 7 assists coming in. There's some good attacking players.
It's not going to be easy. That's for certain.
Yeah. So that's coming up with airtime at 7:15 for the pregame show with Nick Cushing, the full pregame interview with Nick, which we always get a nugget or two maybe that we hadn't learned from the regular pregame presser or at any other time. One thing, Roberto Abramowitz, who does the Spanish commentary, and I sat down with Brad Sims in Nashville the morning of the game, a nice 25-minute sit-down, which we aired on our podcast, our weekly podcast, NYCFC Views. So, Matty, I thought I'd share a clip here.
And I was lucky enough to, you shared that with me. I listened to the whole interview, and I think what I like about Brad, and my assumption is that he's telling the truth, he comes across as very truthful. He doesn't back away or shy from questions when they do become a little bit difficult. And I think the good thing about you and Roberto is people well enough and they respect you well enough to answer questions. They're not going to plead the fifth. They answer questions, whether that be Nick Cushion or Brad Sims. And I think it's a great advert for the football club. And I think Brad Sims is a great advert for presidents. Let's be presidents. Let's not. I'm not talking presidential election because that would be different. I'm talking about actual presidents of football clubs, and he does a good job.
I'm sure he would have performed better than the other two in the debate last night. That's for sure.
Again,
it's not a high bar. It's.
But I am being said, Brad Sims.
And he comes from and I think he's done a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a business guy. I mean, that's his number one thing is to take care of this business, which is when you listen to the article, when you listen to the interview, we kind of go at it a little bit because I'm about the sporting side.
And he's about capitalism and economy and making money and the business side. And he doesn't shy away from that. When you try and not cajole him to say something he doesn't want to, but you talk about the love of the game and the beauty or the romance of an FA Cup or the romance of the US Open Cup, and he doesn't shy away. So yes, people should go away and listen to it.
Right, and when I asked him, Chris Campbell had printed in the outfield that New York City was going to be required to have a second tenant. So obviously, a team you think of is their 2 team. That's a pro team, a second pro tenant. But you think of other things too. But this was how he responded to that.
I saw that, and I don't believe, based on our conversation, that we are contractually obligated to provide a second tenant. We have shared that we would like to, and maybe that's where kind of the committed, the kind of terminology committed would come into play. But we would like to have a second tenant there. I think that the size of the building would not, and I think that maybe there's some opining going on about could our MLS Next Pro team play there. To me, that doesn't make sense. That size of building, any kind of like minor league team, whether that's was team in another league or or whatever. To me, the size of the venue does not match up with the demand for those kind of products. I think.
But if you're looking at it from the sporting side, so if they had a choice of playing at Belson Stadium on artificial surface or playing on the beautiful grass field at whatever stadium, whatever it's going to be called, Etihad, are you committing to that?
Sponsor name stadium. Yes. I heard that maybe I think that was up there in one of the polls. That people seem to like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously.
So that's a good question.
What is the reluctance to put them on that field? Is it just
because
cost?
there's a couple things. One would be we expect this to be a very busy building, and we're optimistic about having lots of other types of events. Whether that's first and foremost, I think will be the mecca of soccer in the United States, but definitely in the New York area. So I expect soccer first and foremost to be our focus in getting matches there, whether that's international friendlies, club and country, type situations, U.S. men's national team, U.S. women's national team, etc. We want lots and lots of high quality soccer there, but then concerts and other events. I think that we will have success there. So all of those kind of other, like any kind of other events, can be significantly profitable, or at least profitable. A MLS Next Pro game, not profitable.
Well, that's where we differ, of course. Of course, it's not going to be profitable, but he said if a second tenant comes in outside of the auspices of New York City FC, then he's fine with that. So people are assuming, could that be a women's team? Could it be a USL Championship team? We've got all kinds of games going on, Summer of Soccer. John Rojas, our friend, he's watching from Medellin, or the outskirts of, with Colombia leads Costa Rica at halftime, 1-0. And one other thing here, we got to make this a very quick comment, but there is a question. What do we think about the U.S. men's national team losing yesterday 2-1? Well, we think that Tim Weah, you talk about USL Championship sides that might move in to the New York City Stadium. Could it be Brooklyn FC? And who is this? Tim Weah, within the last 2 weeks, announced that he's a part owner now of Brooklyn FC. Well, he
made it difficult.
Yeah, that early red card really made it difficult. And now, on Monday night, it's going
to be even more difficult.
Yeah,
it's Uruguay are very good. And,
it's Uruguay.
And they beat Bolivia 5-0, right, the other night. So, it's going to be hard, and the pressure is on. But I think sometimes good teams, which I think the US men's national team is a good national team. I think that's when you stand up, when the pressure's really on. Can you perform? Look, I can't say anything. I'm English, obviously, and England are dreadful right now. I know they're unbeaten in their three.
Is that Sunday?
That's Sunday.
I'm going to Darcy's in Bradley Beach. Sunday noon. I'll be at Bradley's.
Underneath or behind the sofa watching that.
Come on down to the beach. Come to Darcy's. All right. You know who I'm going to be with is Neil Sika. I think he's going to be around too. So
let's do it.
Yeah. So because Neil and he's doing the game next Wednesday for Apple, the Montreal game at Citi Field. So he flew in so he could go golf with me twice. This guy is
tough lives for you guys.
It is tough.
Golfing and football.
All right. I've only left a couple of minutes to get off and then get back on. So come on the New York City FC network at 7:15. At 7:30, we'll be joined by SiriusXM FC channel 157 and Apple TV MLS Season Pass. So I hope you'll join us later. If not, enjoy the game anyway. And thanks for being with us here today. For Matty Lawrence, I'm Glenn Crooks. Talk to you soon.